This interview was originally recorded for the Steve Hatherly Show on TBS EFM. What can't Darren Criss do? I don't know what it is. He started off in school with a very Potter musical and then the subsequent musicals that followed. Then we had Hedwig, then we had How to Succeed in Business. Replacing Daniel Radcliffe must have been an interesting thing when you had already done your school productions of Harry Potter, but we'll get to that. Then we had Glee, of course. Then we had Computer Games, the band with his brother. Then we had American Crime Story, which was just so good. Then we had Hollywood. Then we had royalties. And then we have all the music mixed in between. Darren Criss, what a talent. Welcome to the Steve Hatherly Show. And thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Thank you, Steve. I can dust off my only useful Korean and say 감사합니다. That's all I have.
Tell me something that you're bad at, please. Like, is it knitting or crocheting that you're just terrible at?
I'll tell you exactly what I'm really, really bad at. And I think about it every time when it would be, I like every time I realize this, I go, that's the answer of like what I'm bad at. I was not born for the social media generation. I'm really bad at social media. I have a lot of hangups that are not built well for the sharing universe that kind of dictates what a successful social media relationship is with the person using it. I'm just so awful at it. I'm not good. People are really good about like I'm bad.
It's good to know there's something you're not good at, because it seems like everything else you're pretty amazing at.
Yeah, it's not an easy one for me. And
we have a lot to talk about. So let's get straight into it. Let's go back to the beginning. I wanted to ask you, first of all, because you got involved in theater at a super young age of 10, getting into school for it. But from what I learned about your family, your dad was a banker and your mom from Cebu in the Philippines. We're going to talk about that too, of course. But did you grow up around music, or where was it that the inspiration or the want or the desire for theater and music came from originally for you?
Well, it's usually a cocktail of a lot of different things. I can't point to one specific place that is the direct source of why one is into music. I mean, growing up in the 21st century, music is, or at least growing up in the last 100 years, I would say, music is a commodity that we all grew up with in some way or another. So it's less about being around music and more being around people who are supportive of music, which would be the role that my parents definitely filled. We always had music in the house. My mom always liked singing and stuff. She wasn't necessarily a musician per se, nor was my dad, but they were always very supportive of the art. So I think they were pretty thrilled when I think I was 5 years old when I don't know what happened. Divine intervention, who knows what was planted in my brain, but I said, I want to play the violin. I just said I wanted to play the violin. I guess I've always been kind of a nonconformist. I always wanted to do whatever nobody else I saw was doing. And we can talk more about that later when we get into what I do now as an artist. But this ethos has been true my whole life. And so when I was 5, there's not like a violinist. I didn't see a movie. There was nothing that pointed to a kid saying, like, if you're doing the whatchamacallit, the CSI, like trying to figure out the mystery of where he got it from. I have no idea, but I said, I want to play the violin. And before I knew it, my mom, God bless her, was like, great, we'll put you in lessons. And I think that was really what fostered my musical background, at least the technical aspect of understanding music from a theory and again, technical standpoint. And then along the way, I really liked theater. And I think I have to give that to Disney movies. I think for musical narrative coming from what is now known as the Disney Renaissance, which I would have been the prime demographic of growing up in the 90s, that stuff really ignited a spark in me that liked, the music and the storytelling of that. And, that stuff really shaped me not only as a performer, but definitely as a writer and a songwriter, especially. So yeah, somewhere between supportive parents and Disney movies, which is, I think, how a lot of people my age, a lot of millennials would attest to.
You mentioned it, so let's talk about it right away. Masquerade, the new EP. Congratulations, man. That's amazing.
Thank you. It's nice to have it be out of my brain and into someone else's, because it's just it lives in here for so long, and you just are in your own echo chamber. So art isn't real until it exists, with a third party. So I'm just thrilled that it's out of my brain and into someone
So
else's.
I've heard you talk in other interviews, and you were saying that the pandemic kind of took you off set and just put you kind of straight into music. Do you think that had it not been for the pandemic, maybe if we could find the big silver lining in this whole giant mess, like it would have been longer for this to come out, or for this to come to fruition, or would it have come out anyway, do you think?
I think a lot of people around the world, again, the silver lining would be, having time for things that they would not have otherwise had time for. For some people, that was, I don't know, painting their house, things that you always kind of put on the back burner, personal things, professional things. It runs the gamut. But for me, music is always held off by me having the great fortune that I've had as an actor. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I can't believe my acting career has gotten in the way of music. No, I've been really lucky. And so music is something that I can afford to kind of fit in between the schedule gaps that a very fruitful, fortunate acting career has yielded. But because that was sort of taken away from the equation, yeah, I definitely don't think I would have had the time or the space to put this music out. I would have wanted to. These songs would have been sitting around. I mean, some of these songs have been sitting around for almost, more than a decade. So, these are all, I think that's one of the curses of being a songwriter or a writer in general, is that your ideas move faster than your body can execute. And so what happens is the queue becomes larger and larger and larger and larger. It's like holding a hose, right? And so all these songs and ideas get embargoed, and only every now and then can you actually, loosen the spout to have some of them come out every now and then. And the pandemic certainly enabled that for me. I wish there was more songs. There's so much music from over the years that I really want to put out, but it just takes time.
When you were doing it, did you know that?
Of course, but I also had a really, really unique perspective that that some of the other kids may not have had. No, I'm not saying they didn't have the perspective; they just were positioned differently. The show was a massive hit before I was on it, so I was aware of its sort of cultural ubiquity even before I had anything to do with it. I would talk about it with other people. I didn't even watch it. I kind of knew about it, but you had to live under a rock not to be aware of its cultural moment and the phenomenon that it was. Like, it's the kind of thing that knocks down your door, and if you don't know about it, you're like, what's wrong with you? How do you not know what Glee is, right? So I was in that category of people who, oh, Darren, you like theater, you like musical theater, what do you think of this show? And so I was kind of put into this conversation. So I was fully aware of its importance and its significance. So when you join a show like that, I kind of had a bird's eye view the whole time, going like, holy shit, I'm on Glee. This thing is huge. And that was kind of my attitude the entire time. And I was fully aware of it. So absolutely. I didn't know that I'd be on it as long. I certainly didn't know that Teenage Dream would take on the life that it did. I'm thrilled for it. And but I'm fully aware that it had to do with things much bigger than myself. I don't know if I would have had the same tenure on that show if it weren't for the fact that I was cast as an anticipated character for one of the show's favorite characters. Anybody else, I don't know if we'd be sitting here talking.
What does it mean to you now? I mean, now it's, what are we, 6-7 years removed from the finale? When you look back and you think about it, what does the show mean to you now?
Oh my God, I loved every second of that show. I loved everybody on it. I have, I was joking. There was some press pickup about, I've got a podcast going on weekly. I got this music festival I'm trying to get back up in New York, and I have this new EP coming out. But you talk about Glee for like 30 seconds, and that's all people pick up. It's funny, and I'm not knocking press for doing that. It's because it still has so much cachet, and it is the clickbaity thing. The thing that bummed me out about it is that they tried to sort of twist something as if I was antagonizing something from Glee, and it's like, anybody who knows me, or like, I've never been inconsistent with this. Like, I fucking loved Glee, man. It was such a goddamn privilege to be on. I was like, yo, stop trying to make it look like that I don't think that, like, that I don't know that. Quit trying that. I'm like the happy-go-lucky dude that loved it. Like, it truly, madly, deeply, to quote the song, to quote another Darren. Uh, I really loved the show, and I'm so pleased that it still has the weight that it does, because people watched it during the pandemic for the first time, you know. So we're still getting a new audience, and yeah, you know, warts and all, silly things, not so silly things, beautiful things, strange things, the whole soup. I thought it was wonderful, and I still feel so privileged every day that I got to be part of it.
As a fan of the show who saw every episode, thanks for doing it. You were massively entertaining on the show for sure.
It was one of the biggest opportunities of my life.
All
It's
right.
not like you had to convince me to do Glee. You know, holy shit, I went for, like, that was an insane moment for me. It still is. And yeah.
Now, from Blaine to Andrew Cunanan in An American Crime Story, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, when I saw that show, I was like, Blaine? You were incredible on that show.
Thanks,
Pardon
man.
me. But how much of a stretch? I mean, obviously that character was a serial killer, but how do you even prepare for a character like that? You did an incredible job of just embodying the creepiness of what that character was supposed to be.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, that was the idea. At the end of the day, I like to remind everybody that, you know, I think as audience members, or especially if you're not necessarily an actor, we tend to think, we tend to give a point system to certain levels of gravitas, right? Oh, if it's a serious drama, then it's more points. It must take more currency. It must take more credits, as it were. Whereas something that's kind of maybe more light and silly must take less. And I'd like to dispel that. For me as an actor, I put the same amount of emotional and intellectual equity into creating a comedy like Glee as I would a tragedy like American Crime Story. Now, they exist in very different worlds, and obviously the characterizations are a little different, and they have different worlds, and the vibes are different. But the truth is, as an actor, I do the same amount of preparation and give it the same amount of consideration as I would any other character. You know, it's still trying to bring a character to life, and try and take an emotional idea and make it an experience for people.
Speaking of Asia in general, have you been over here, by the way? Have you been to this part of the world before? Your mom's from the Philippines.
She's from the Philippines, but as many people, especially folks that actually do live in Korea, not all the Asian countries are right next to each other, as perhaps less traveled Westerners may assume. You can't just go, oh, I'm gonna go to the Philippines, I'll just pop by Seoul. It's a long flight. So, or longer than just, you know, I've already having gone to the Philippines. I have not, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I've always wanted to go to Seoul. I've always wanted to play a show in Seoul or do something there, for many obvious reasons. It's one of the great cities of the world. Obviously, the music coming out of for all the reasons that I feel like are so obvious that I don't need to like list them. There are so many wonderful places in the world, and you know, if you name any of them, it's not like any of us are sitting here twisting our mustaches avoiding going there. It's just you wait for the opportunity and the time to go. So I look forward to it truly, and I can't wait to get back there and play my songs in Seoul, and you know, tie one on and drink a couple of beers with some friends down there. I can't wait.
Absolutely. I was watching Royalties. Congratulations on that too. That came out last year. I loved that. I loved
that.
It.
Is so nice of you to bring up, because you're the only person I think that saw it. So bless your heart for saying that.
I think it's hilarious. I think it was genius how you put the episodes together without, you know, writing of the song. It was super tongue in cheek, obviously, but then the music videos that accompanied
Thank you, man. I don't think I've worked harder on anything in my entire life. Which is why, you know, nobody really saw it. It kind of went the way of the dodo, and that's okay, because, you know, all you can really do is, you know, do something that you love, and I'm proud of it. And, you know, it was such a scrappy thing that we had to put together under pretty like tight circumstances. So given all of the, you know, obstacles we had, it's pretty extraordinary that we made it at all, and that folks like yourself got to watch it. So for the folks that did see it, I think did enjoy it, and I appreciate that, because that was not only the hardest I've worked on anything in my entire life, but it was where I fired off on all cylinders. You know, as an actor, as you know, a sort of backseat director, producer, songwriter, everything that I love to do, I got to kind of funnel into that show. and for the very small amount of people that saw it, I think they hopefully would have gotten a piece of that. So thank you for saying it. It's on Roku now. It's on the Roku channel if people have that. If you're curious what I'm talking about.
So I read an article on MTV, and that your love of K-pop was on display in that article, talking about BTS and Blackpink. And then I'm watching episode 9 of Royalties, and there's the K-pop video. So I want to ask you, is that potentially in the cards in your future? Maybe a collab with a K-pop group, maybe music.
If I wasn't so obscenely small time to the behemoth industry that is K-pop, sure, that'd be great. That'd give me a huge leg up. But I sincerely doubt any of them. I don't know how to say two shits in Korean, but I don't think they get, maybe one shit because of Glee, but certainly not the 2 prerequisite shits that would be required to do a K-pop collab. But I'm a big fan. It's also interesting seeing how we loved K-pop when we were on Glee. Me and Kevin McHale would talk about it all the time, and it's interesting because now I guess especially in the West, K-pop is sort of predominantly associated with BTS and Blackpink. But during Glee, we were really into like G4 was it?
G-Dragon.
G-Dragon. I was going to say G4 is the movie. I was going to say Dragon Force. G-Dragon. Mm-hmm. G-Dragon. And I was really into a lot of smaller acts that I don't know if anybody necessarily knows, but there was a brother-sister duo called Actong Musician that I really like.
That's amazing that you know about them.
I love those two.
As far as I know.
That's a group that I would do anything to like write a record with. I love Actong Musician, and anytime I play K-pop, that's my go-to. You want to hear really cool music, like singer-songwriter shit, and I'll play them. I love Actong Musician.
Awesome. Well, you're on a time crunch. You're a busy guy with all the interviews.
No, I love talking to you, Steve. This is a real pleasure.
I know. Let's try and do it again sometime, because we didn't even get to talk about Hollywood, and I love hearing you talk about just about life in general, and we didn't even have a chance to get to that. So I really hope that we can do this again. But
I do too.
Masquerade came out. Everybody needs to buy this for your fans here in Korea. And by the way, we have a pretty large following of the show in the Philippines as well. So for fans in this part of the world, tell us what we need to know about the EP. Tell us why we need to buy Masquerade.
Well, I think it's whether you know my music or not, it's certainly more pop leaning and very unapologetically so. This is a record that was making during a pandemic, and I wanted to offer something joyful to the world. In the past, I've done very kind of pensive, much more analog kind of singer-songwriting stuff that wasn't meant to compete in any kind of bigger pop universe. It's for my fans and frankly for my mom, and very, very chill stuff. Whereas this was sort of ideally playlist, radio ready, music that you can dance to, that you don't really have to know the context of. And it's me, putting on the different masks. You can do that as an actor, right? You can play Blaine, you can play Andrew Cunanan. That's using different masks. And so I'm playing the part of the new wave retro song, the party song, the jazz, hip hop infusion song. Like there's a lot of different masks that I wanted to apply to doing this record in the way that I do with my acting career. So at the end of the day, it's just music you can hopefully be friends with. And I hope that you enjoy it and play it at your next COVID safe party.
Very nice. It's called Masquerade. It's the new EP from Darren Criss. I've heard it. It's fantastic. Darren, thank you so much. Such a pleasure for me to sit
here.
Likewise. I sincerely hope that we can do this again. But in the meantime,
as do I.
Yeah, stay safe. Take care of yourself. And I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Darren Criss. Don't forget to hit subscribe on the Storytime podcast channel. Hit like as well and leave a comment below. I'll see you for the next episode.